welcome back. Today we're working on the 97X here. We're having some trouble with the blower inside on the fan, and the module needs to be replaced. So let's take a look at the symptoms inside the vehicle to get started. Inside the 97X we've got a dual zone climate control. It's all digital, it's automatic. This is not the separate manual climate control. If you get the other type of climate control, this will require a different repair and a different part. So let me turn the vehicle on and show you what happens. And so now with the vehicle on, I can turn the fan up. See me turning the fan down? Actually, when I turned it all the way down, it went off. And now as I turn it back up, it's not changing speed. It was all the way up and now it's pretty low, but it's not properly changing speeds, or it's all the way on where it won't come on sometimes. And so the problem is our control module here is messed up, and we're going to have to replace it so that we get our variability and our temperature control back. There we go, see, that's up. Now if I increase the speed, the fan's, you should be able to hear by listening to the fan a different sound, but you don't. If I turn it down, again, no change in the fan speed. And so we've got a problem with our blower control module, and that's what we're going to replace today. So our blower control module is going to be on the passenger side underneath the glove box, and so our first step is going to be having to empty out the glove box and empty that out, and then be able to get to the part underneath it. When you're doing the diagnostic work and you're thinking it might be your blower control module, it's worth a check of going under the hood and pulling off the fuse box and looking for the number 35 fuse, which on my vehicle is located right back here. There's a 40 amp fuse that controls your blower motor. Just double check that to make sure that that's in good shape, because there's a small chance that maybe your fuse is blown, and all you have to do is just simply replace the fuse. So it's at least worth 2 minutes of your time to do that. All it takes is having to remove the fuse cover and take a quick look. For the tools that you're going to need for this project, we're going to need a handful of tools. It looks like there's a lot more here than what you really need, but it's not that bad. So let's start off with the first one here. You're going to want a flashlight. You're going to be working underneath the dash of your car. You'll want a light, preferably with some sort of a variable angle. I'm not sure if this is the best one, but as a flashlight of some sort is going to be necessary. You want a pair of scissors. You're going to have to cut some wires, which means you also need a pair of wire strippers. I suppose if you're careful, there are some knives that have some sort of wire stripping functionality built into them. I would recommend against this, but if you're in a pinch, that might work. Get yourself a nice pair of wire strippers, and you'll be thankful for that. You also probably want a screwdriver for trying to get some of the connections apart, a parts tray for keeping track of screws, some electrical tape for the electrical connections. And with the electrical connections, you're going to need a set of butt splices or wire nuts. I'll show it using butt splices, but wire nuts could be done just the same, and use your tape to come back and seal up those connections. You'll want a soldering iron or a heat gun if you're using the butt splices to be able to heat shrink those. You also may want a pair of pliers, whether they're channel lock, adjustable, or linesman pliers, for being able to work with the connectors and trying to get everything put together, or crimp your butt splices. And then for the sockets, we're going to need a 5/16 socket and wrench to be able to disconnect our battery. And then we're going to want a 1/4 inch ratchet, an extension, probably about 4 to 6 inches, and then we're going to want a number 6, a number 7, and a number 8 metric socket to be able to work on the various bolts that are underneath the dash to get this going. So it looks like a lot more than it is. A lot of these are pretty basic tools. You could get by without a parts tray. You could get by without a soldering gun or the butt splices and just go with the wire nuts. At the core of it, you got to have the sockets to be able to remove the screws or the bolts, the wire snips, and a pair of scissors. And you probably really need a flashlight and a screwdriver. But work from there and you'll be good. Let's take a look at our replacement part here. This is an AC-Delco part 15-81773. There's one of these in the box. Components made in Korea and Mexico. The manual speed control, it's referred to as a resistor. On the automatic speed control, like this with the digital control, It's a control module. And so let's open the box on our new part. This was ordered online off of Amazon. And so if you look in the box here, first of all, we're going to have a set of instructions. It should help serve as a guide about how this goes in. And you can see a little bit of a wiring diagram here on the page. You can see you got our blower motor here. That's why we were going to drop the glove box down so we can get access to that. You got our wiring diagram for our wiring harnesses here. So it's nice that the part comes here with some instructions. We've got some mounting screws. We got our wiring harness. And then carefully wrapped up is our control module. And you'll notice there's also a nice large heat sink on this here to help dissipate any heat. And the AC-Delco one here actually says worry on it, or W-O-O-R-Y. Kind of intriguing. There's a nice little wire guide here, A, B, C, D, E for the plug connector. They get everything all squared up and put away. There's been several generations of these, so the installation of this might be slightly different, which is the reason I was given for why they also include instructions with this, as a lot of times there's not actually instructions with the parts that you get from AC-Delco or other manufacturers. The very first step we're going to do in this project is going to be to undo the battery to make sure we don't have any stray current wandering around through the wires before we get inside the vehicle. So we're going to use a 5/16" wrench or socket to be able to undo the battery wires from the back side here. So we're going to drop those off, and then we'll be able to go inside the vehicle. Now with our battery safely disconnected, we know there's no stray current, and we can go on and get started with the wiring inside. If we look underneath our glove box, we'll see there's a screw over here on the right and a screw over here on the left. These are 7mm screws, so we can use a 1/4" socket and remove those so we'll drop off this lower panel here. And we'll be able to get access to our blower motor. And I'll show you why we emptied out the glove box earlier. And so with the glove box being empty, my registration, all this stuff's taken out. There's a switch over here on the side that we can pull out of the way and lift up. And by lifting up on that, allows that to go drop down, and we can get access and we can look down on some of the wiring from the top. So if we need to look at our wiring connectors, we get a nice full view of that. It's also good to make sure nothing else slid down out of the back of your glove box while you're doing this repair. So now it's on to remove the bottom panel. I'll put the glove box up and got to remove a couple screws. As we look at the bottom panel here, I've got this unbolted from above. You can see there's a couple little spots where these wiring connectors snap into the bottom panel here. You're going to be able to use a flathead screwdriver to be able to pry those up and get those out of the respective slots here. It'll make it easier just to be able to get to the rest of the wiring. And then the actual blower control module is back up where I was just pointing with my fingers. You're going to have to lay on your back. It's a little bit awkward to get up there to be able to take a look at it. I'm going to see if I can wiggle under there with the camera. I apologize if the view is a little difficult here, but you can see where the sticker is. That's our actual blower control module that we're going to be replacing. You can see there's a wire clip right there on top of the module, so we're going to go ahead and try to remove that with the wires. And then there's a couple other parts under there. I apologize, this is just kind of difficult to get to. You might have to be kind of flexible, or if there's someone you know that has a pretty youthful back, they can help you out with this job too. Now with our blower control module removed, we've got this laying on the floor of the car. You can see where we've got a couple aluminum fins sticking out and a wiring connector right there. This is what's towards the top of the frame that you're looking at. With the wiring up there, if you follow it up, this is why we want to remove stuff from the glove box. There's another wire that comes around to our fan right here that we're going to have to be able to unplug. This is going to take a little bit of finagling here with your hands or maybe a set of pliers so we'll get that plug out. And then be able to route the wires out and around. And so then our new part is going to have a new plug that's going to plug in to there. So now if we look at the module that we just removed, you can see it's got two aluminum fins here. The aluminum shows a little bit of oxidation on it. Overall decent shape, but it's really the electronics inside that count. That's actually what controls the fan. You can see there's a plug-in right there that we removed whenever we were on our back under the car. And the two wires coming out, we're going to the fan. Our new part's on the left here. This is in gray.
You can tell that GM actually redesigned this here just a little bit, and there's some small changes here, especially in the wiring harness on what's on top. We're going to have to wire in a new wiring connector and perform a little bit of soldering or wire nutting together to be able to make this work. There is no more fixed wire coming out of the module, so in the event you have to replace this, it's just snapping in a couple wires. You can see there's also a lot more fins on top to be able to dissipate heat. That heat actually goes into the fan, and so then the fan dissipates the heat from it. It also includes a nifty wiring diagram that shows you exactly what the wiring should be, and the rest of the instructions on how to do the replacement, since this is not necessarily just a straightforward part-for-part replacement. So here's the wire that we're going to have to be able to solder together. You can see the loose ends there, and we're just going to follow the wiring diagram. This wide plug here is what actually goes into the module, and so that's our main clip. You got the other clip that goes into the blower, and those other wires there have to get tied into the wire that we left in the vehicle, and we'll just have to make those connections together. Red to red, black to black, purple to purple. Pretty simple to do. Just follow the diagram and go on. So now if we come back and look at our wiring harness, you can see the connector that we pulled out. This is what we have to rewire into the new kit. So the first thing I'm going to try here is to see if we can actually remove the old plug off the end of the bare wires, and maybe there's a chance we won't have to go through the wire stripping process. So I'm going to start here by trying to remove the little gray plug here with a pair of pliers and seeing if I can pry that out. This may take a little finagling. You may need a flat blade screwdriver to be able to try to get it out. You can see that clip comes right out, but then the rest of the wire here is crimped in actually to the wiring connector, and I unfortunately was not successful in being able to get that removed despite trying a couple methods, a couple different ways to get that removed. And so now I'm trying again with the pliers, trying to just be able to twist it off without any luck, trying various combinations just to be able to force it off. Ultimately, the crimp job on this wire was done very well, and I was not successful. As you can see, I did get the wires out, but when I say successful, each of these little metal wire crimp connectors would also still have to be removed, and those are out of the club or out of the bracket, but they still need to come off. And so at this point, it's going to be just as easy to grab a pair of scissors and just cut them off. So with the scissors in hand, just like you're giving a haircut, we're going to just cut each of the connectors off one by one.
Now with our wires that we've got cut down here, what we're going to do is we're going to use our wire strippers. We'll strip off a little end that we can use to butt joint these wires together. So if we start with 12 gauge black, there we go, there's our 12 gauge black. We'll go on to a 12 gauge red. And in this case, just to get the pull, I'm going to use a pair of linesman's pliers behind my wire strippers just to be able to get the shielding cut and pulled off the end. If you work it gently, it should come. Try not to tear any of the wires. You can twist it there we go. And now on to the purple wire. Let's just start to make sure we get the right size here. If we 16, let's look at about 18. There we go. So our purple wire is about 18 gauge, and the other ones were 12 gauge. So now we need the appropriate splices. Now we're going to use our butt splices to be able to make the splices work. We'll just start putting, make sure our wire is nice and round. Work that in. Make sure it's nice and tight. Now using the wiring harness that came with our new part, we're going to pull off the pieces that came with it and get those ready for the splice. Alternatively, if you didn't want to use butt splices here, you could use wire nuts. That would be perfectly acceptable too. In this case here, this is just a little bit longer for the splice. Now all that's left is we got to be able to shrink wrap these tubes. Now the next step is to be able to reduce the heat shrink the tube. To do this inside the vehicle, I'm going to use a soldering iron. Now, just because I'm particular, I'm going to come back over and wrap some electrical tape around these splices, starting off of the splice, just to make sure that there's no chance of any stray current or anything leaking through. So now with the new wiring, what they've effectively done is you've got the wire for the fan control, or for that goes to the blower motor, is all tied into the same splice, whereas before the blower motor wire went directly to the module, and so if you had to replace the module, you had to pull this out and go that. So now it's all contained in one easy plug-in to the module. And so with the module, let me get my piece of trash here out of the way. We'll go ahead and plug in the clip here to the module. Make sure we get this is keyed in here correctly, so it only goes in one way. Just go ahead and plug that right in there. And the next thing we need to do is then take this wire here and route this up the back so it can plug into our blower. Now we got our wire plugged into our blower motor. Let's see if you can see that better there. And now we got to be able to route the wires and then mount up our control module underneath. And so if you look up, you see that little hole, that port up there. That's where we're going to get our blower control module up. There's not a lot of elbow room back here between my flashlight and the camera, so I'm just going to have to do that off camera. And I'll come back and show you what it looks like when it's all screwed up there. Alright, now you can see the module fully seated up underneath the dash. This is all the way in the back. The hard part here is just contorting your body to get to it. Not difficult to install. Now we got to put the wires back on the cover that we've got down here and get the cover back up and make sure XM radio adapter is also in place too. So on the reassembly, the first thing I did was I installed the XM radio pack back down at the bottom, and now it's time to snap in the other cords. And these will go back. We'll try to get them as close to the way they were whenever we took the stuff out to begin with. So we've got 3 sets of adapters, 3 sets of holes, and just a matter of getting the adapters back in the holes that they came from. Something like that. And then when we get it up, we've got 2 screws left. We'll come back here with the socket. Or at least like that. And repeat the same thing on the other side. These don't need to be super tight, just nice and firm and snug to hold the panel on. And now we've got everything replaced, and all we gotta do is go back and put the battery back and then start up the car, and we should be good to go. Alright, with the battery back on, everything reattached, time to start up the car. Make sure your garage door is open and check out your AC. Alright, so we got the car started. Time to check on our blower unit. So now on startup, I can adjust my blower speed from low to high. There's going to be some delay, and we got our problem solved. So I hope you found this video useful. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and I appreciate it, and have a great day. Bye.